Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. This is very important. What I'm going to talk about now may seem like a dry subject, but trust me, the implications that this has on us, U.S. citizens in particular, and countries that use the U.S. Federal Reserve note, i.e. the U.S. dollar, the implications are enormous, right? I'm going to talk about the deal that Russia just made with China to accept yuan for their jet fuel, I believe it is. We're going to go over that article really quick. It's very short. But first, I wanted to go ahead and go over with you three major signs that precede the fall of world reserve currency. We've been hearing this all over, that the U.S. is going to lose world reserve currency status. And in my opinion, the U.S. will lose world reserve currency status. But what does that mean to you and to me? What does that mean to the purchasing power of the dollars that we already have? As you all know, the purchasing power of our dollars has been going down drastically over the last year and a half or so. And a lot of people blame it on different things. On inflation, which is the increase of the money supply. On shipping containers going up in price because of the supply of shipping containers. Because of this health crisis. All of these things people are blaming it on, and all of those things more than likely have a part on it. However, if the U.S. loses its world reserve currency status, then it's going to be so much worse than what it is now. And this is why I bring you this, because this is the information we need to know in order to better prepare. This right here, what we're going to listen to here, what I'm going to talk to you about here, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of like telling you a week in advance, a hurricane is coming toward you. A hurricane is coming toward you, so prepare for that hurricane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is no different, except that the implications that us losing world reserve currency will have more drastic impacts on our entire nation than a hurricane on a region. So here, as you can see, it says three major signs that precede the fall of world reserve currencies. I'm not going to go through this article. I'm just going to go ahead and show you the key points. But as you can see here, going all the way back to the 1400s, we see that Portugal had the world reserve currency till sometime in the 1500s. It was Spain, and then the Netherlands, then France, then Britain, and then here we are with the U.S. world reserve currency going all the way back to the early 1900s. Really, in my opinion, it's more like the mid-1900s. People look at it different ways. I think that we really became the world reserve currency back in 1944 or so, after World War II. However, like I said, people look at it different ways, and that's okay. So one of the major reasons why a country loses world reserve currency status is war and empire building. And I'm not going to bother reading through all of this, because all you have to do is ask yourself, has the U.S. been conducting war and empire building probably for at least your lifetime, depending on how old you are, right? In my lifetime, yes, they have. All right, the second reason that they give is reckless spending and easy credit. Again, do I really have to read this to justify that the U.S. has actually been recklessly spending money and easy credit? Look at where credit is. The Federal Reserve fund rate, I believe, is at 0.025, or less than 1/4%. And then the banks go ahead and lend us money at a much higher percentage rate. But that's another topic for another video. But has there been reckless spending? I would say yes. Has there been easy credit? I would say yes. Just take a look at the equity markets or the stock market. A lot of the stocks that are purchased from the stock market are purchased on leverage, meaning that people, i.e. people or corporations, because corporations are people according to the Supreme Court, they borrow money so that they can buy more stock than what they actually have money for. So for example, leverage buying of stocks or equities is like, let's say you have 10% of what you want to buy in stocks, and then you buy another 90%, and then you borrow another 90% to make up the rest that you're going to go ahead and buy. So that's leverage buying of equities, and that is reckless spending and easy credit. And I mean, we can go into a slew of things in where the U.S. has recklessly spent money. Trade wars and sanctions. Has anyone heard these two words in the recent past? Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. Trade wars and sanctions. One of the reasons that trade wars is not good is because it hurts the end consumer. Whenever you hear the word tariff, it's not the country that's importing the goods that's being charged a tariff. It is you, the person that is purchasing the goods, because the wholesalers have to pay that tariff to get those goods into the country, and of course they're going to go ahead and pass on those expenses onto you, the consumer. Now, sanctions. We all know that when a country that has the world reserve currency tells other countries, hey, listen, if you don't play ball the way we tell you to play ball, then we're going to go ahead and cut you off and you won't be able to trade internationally using the US dollar. Countries don't like that. So we are definitely on a shift away from the US dollar being the world reserve currency. And I just want to show you one more step that has been taken. Now, I'm not sure if you've all heard, but Saudi Arabia has made an arms deal with Russia, where Russia will provide them with arms and with military protection. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is huge. And why is that? It's because the reason that the petrodollar was born, the reason that there is so much demand around the world for the dollar, is because the petrodollar was born, I believe it was in 1973, 1974, where Henry Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia and made a deal with them. And do you know what that deal was? He told them, hey, the U.S. will provide you with arms and with military protection if you only sell oil in dollars. And that's how the petrodollar was born, creating an artificial need for dollars throughout the world, meaning that the U.S. can print, and export their number one export, which is inflation, which is US dollars, making a demand for dollars, which gives the dollar value, because the more people that want it, the more value that it has. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Saudi Arabia pretty much just null and void that contract that it made with the US back in 1973-74. And now they went ahead and renewed that contract with Russia. What implications does that have on the petrodollar and other countries needing to use the US dollar to purchase their oil with? Russia's Gazprom moves to yuan in fueling planes in China. So it's saying that Russia is now taking yuan in payment for fueling jets in China. And it says here that the Russian giant Gazprom has started to move away from the US dollar to China's yuan in settlement for fueling planes in China. The deal has been reached with China's national jet fuel operator, he said. Now, some people may say, well, that's not that big of a deal. It's only, one small portion. It's just jet fuel. Ladies and gentlemen, the deal is this. It's not the actual size of the deal that matters. It's the optics. Other countries are going to see this, and they're going to say, wait a minute. We don't really have to use the dollar anymore, do we? I mean, we don't have to use the dollar. Russia's using yuan. They're doing bilateral trading with China. So do we really have to use the dollar? And they're going to go to Saudi Arabia or the OPEC nations that made a deal with Russia for protection and for arms and say, hey, do we have to use the dollar anymore? What do you think Saudi Arabia or the OPEC nations are going to say? I think they're going to say, no, you don't have to use the dollar. What do you want to use? You want to trade in gold? And we're going to get to that here in a second. He also stated that we start from September and may switch to all the settlements on jet fuel to the yuan. So they're starting to reach settlements on jet fuel this month here in September. And he also said that the Chinese airlines and Russian airports may soon make their payments for buying fuel in Russian rubles. So they're doing bilateral trading with their currencies only, bypassing the US dollar. Russia and China have long planned to increase settlements in their local currencies in mutual trade. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is not just a matter of two nations bypassing the US dollar, creating less need for the dollar worldwide, but it's the optics that it provides to other nations. And I'm not sure if you've heard as well that there's like 7 or 8 other countries that have signed the same deal with Russia that Saudi Arabia did. So expect the dollar's value to start going down. What does that mean to you and me, ladies and gentlemen? That means that the more that the dollar goes down, the more expensive that things will get for us here. All right. Now, I covered this, I think it was in a live stream, 2 or 3 live streams ago, where I said, imagine what's going to happen when the dollar goes down 25% or 30% from where it is now. Things have been getting more expensive here at home in the U.S. with the dollar gaining strength. Now imagine how expensive they will get when the dollar gets hit with 25-30% devaluation, because so many other nations are going to stop using the dollar because of the lead that Russia and China have taken in doing the same thing. This is why we have to prepare, ladies and gentlemen. Do your own research. Make sure that you're stocked up on all things that you need. So how do we protect ourselves? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the way that I see it is this. I take a look at what the big wigs are doing, and then I do a little bit of research, and then I decide for myself whether I should do the same thing or not. Now, of course, I always advocate that you have a full pantry and at least a year, if not more, of those things that you need in order to live and in order to maintain the standard of living that you currently live. So if you don't have those things, I would say get those things first and make sure that you have them in quantity. The more, in my opinion, the better. So stack it to the rafters. So we've also heard that countries for the past few years have been buying gold at a very fast pace, faster than in the last 50 years or so. So I wanted to go over this chart with you to show you what most people, in my opinion, look at, but what it is that I look at. So if you take a look here, this is the gold reserves throughout the world by country. And as you can see, the U.S. is in #1 spot. So many people would say, well, you know, we're in pretty good shape. If the world goes to a world reserve currency that is backed by gold, we should be in pretty good shape. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Since 1954, there has not been a true inventory of our gold. No one has actually gone in there and taken the time that they need to assay the bars, to actually count the bars by serial number and to see exactly what we have. So this number that you see up there, 8,133 ton, no one really knows, at least in the public, whether that gold is still there or not. And if it's still there, if it hasn't been sold to someone else on paper. All right, so you can see that the U.S. is #1. The top 7 countries have over 1,000 ton of gold. But that's not what worries me, ladies and gentlemen. We can sit here and say, well, Germany's not going to go ahead and, forsake the U.S., but they're doing a deal with Russia on that pipeline that's going into Germany or into Europe from Russia, right? They're not sanctioning Russia the way that the U.S. is because they want that gas at a cheaper rate than what they would get it from us here in the U.S. So how do we know that? But that's not what worries me. What worries me is not these top countries and our relationship with those top countries, but it's all the small countries, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and add up all of the gold for all of these small countries that we have been bullying for all of these decades. Do you think that they would rather get more for their labor than what they are getting now? Do you think that they would rather bypass the dollar knowing that they can get more of this or that for their currency, if their currency is backed up in gold, than they would if they continue to use the US dollar with the way that the US dollar is being printed into infinity? These are the ones that worry me, ladies and gentlemen, are all of the smaller holdings of gold in these other nations, not the big ones. If gold was not something that was on the table to be used, right, as a form of equity or as a form of collateral for trade between countries, then why in the world do so many countries hold so much of it? All right, ladies, that's my question. If gold is just a relic, right, an outdated relic, if it's just a paperweight that you can use to hold a door open, why do so many countries and central banks hold it? So like I said, I like to look at what they're doing and not necessarily at what they're saying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, another thing that I wanted to show you. I just want to go ahead and show you a good example of why it is that you should prepare yourselves now. Don't wait until the dollar hyperinflates before you're prepared. And no, I'm not Chicken Little. This will happen eventually, ladies and gentlemen. It has happened throughout the entire history of mankind. The U.S. will eventually lose its world reserve status as far as the dollar goes. So we need to prepare ourselves. I wanted to show you a good example of what happens just in a few years once a nation's currency hyperinflates. And of course, we're going to talk about Venezuela. Now, ladies and gentlemen, back in 2012, 2011 or so, Venezuela had not yet started to really go downhill when it comes to their currency and to what happened in their economy over there. So I wanted you to take a look. In Venezuela, the minimum wage for a month's worth of work back in 2012 was 3,050 bolivars. All right? 3,050. Today in Venezuela, only what? Not even 10 years later? 9 years later, the minimum wage in Venezuela is 400,000 bolivars per month. But how much does it buy? Does it still buy the same that it used to buy then? I'm glad you asked. I want to go ahead and show you this real quick. This is called let me see if I can show you here. This is the Venezuela Coffee Index, all right? Coffee with Milk Index. And it's a way that they measure inflation just by the price of coffee in that particular nation over time. So I want you to go ahead and take a look down here. Let me see if I can show you all the way down here. This would only take me back to like 2016, but it will prove my point, right? Let's go all the way back to where we can actually measure a cup of coffee as far as how much it cost. So all the way back in August 30th of 2016, 1 cup of coffee with milk in Venezuela cost 0.01 bolivars. 0.01 bolivars, a cup of coffee in Venezuela. Let's go ahead and take it to this year, 2021. In 2021, a cup of coffee in Venezuela costs 7,841,345 bolivars. That was as of August 31st of 2021. Has their salary kept up with inflation? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's where I'm going to leave it at right now. All right, I hope you got something out of this. Again, I think this is somewhat of a dry subject for a lot of people. However, it's very important because this is the kind of information that a lot of people don't get from watching the news. And a lot of people maybe don't understand. So I'm trying to break it down so that you can understand how important it is for you to be prepared right now. Having said that, have a great day. Hey, we'll see you later on today during our live stream. For those of you that missed out on the nutrient survival deal, I went over this our last live stream, but just in case you didn't catch that, it is still on. Nutrient Survival went ahead and restarted it, and it is still on at the same savings as was premiered during the premiere that we did, announcing it, I believe, on Thursday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so take advantage of it now. It's going to be available for the rest of the month, and the AP10 code will get you 10% off that kit or anything in Nutrient Survival. Other than that, have a great day. We'll see you later on today during our live stream. So remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out. If you're at that part of your prepper preparedness plan where you are now starting to put away long-term food storage, then consider Nutrient Survival. This is the best and most nutrient-dense long-term food storage in the market. I consume this on a regular basis every day just for the nutrients because it is such a good product. Now, when I say this, ladies and gentlemen, I mean it. Feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.